ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeff Rains coming to you again with Foundation of Civilization. This week, uh, I'm doing my weekly rundown of events in the world, and this week we've had some pretty significant events. First, to start off with the current markets, uh, oil, West Texas Intermediate crude was up 1.63% to 71.24. Brent North Sea crude was up 1.27% to 75.17. The OPEC baskets was up 0.37% to 73.32. Gold rose a little bit to it rose 1.59% to 27.15.28. Silver was up 1.57% to 31.34. And on the Baltic Exchange, dry goods shipping was up 13.89%. Excuse me, it was down 13.89% to 1537. In Europe, the DAX was down for the week, 0.26% to 1932.59. The FTSE was up 2.46% to 8262.08. The CAC 40 was down 0.37% to 7255.01. The IBEX was down 0.11% to 11656.60. And the Stocks 50 was down 0.17% to 4789.08. In London, farmers were protested the imposition of a 20% inheritance tax for farmers. Many of the farms are businesses that are passed from one generation to the next, and the new generation has to work hard just to maintain it. Now the politicians want to get money when this transition occurs, and they want to do so without getting any manure on their shoes. In a move to bolster the BRICS nations, Russia and Iran have finalized a deal to trade in local currencies instead of US dollars. This is just one of those deals that will lead to the end of the hegemony of the US dollar in the world and bring down the economic power of the United States. Uh, in the Baltic waters, north of between Germany, Russia, and Sweden and Finland, uh, there were underwater cables that were damaged in the Baltic Sea. Uh, two uh, two individual cables were cut about a day apart. Well, sometime apart. It's still disputed exactly when the cut occurred. One cable connected Sweden and Lithuania. The other connected Finland and Germany. Now, it is unclear if this was an act of sabotage or just an accident. There was a Chinese ship that was stopped and tracked and investigated that passed over these cables, and they were wondering if they might have been dragging their anchor, and it might have damaged the cables. It is also worthy of note that Russia has a military unit dedicated to interrupting communications for Western powers, and this unit often is conducting exercises near Western cables. That's their job. That's what they practice. This day was no different, but it is unclear if they have any culpability in this incident. As previously noted, North Korean soldiers are fighting with Russian forces in the Kursk region. Their numbers have grown to an estimated 11,000 troops who are facing Ukrainian troops who invaded the Kursk region in Russia. Uh, I need to note on the Ukrainian conflict that currently the United States has no ambassador from Russia. He was recalled to Russia back in October for what they said were consultations. The official story is that Russia is changing out ambassadors, but haven't replaced the ambassador yet. Uh, Early this week, the U.S. president authorized Ukraine to use long-range missiles to strike Russia. Uh, the the United States missile system is called the ATACMS, and the British systems are called Storm Shadow missiles. Germany is refusing to allow their Taurus missiles to be used. They're still, I guess, still trying to maintain some neutrality, some level of neutrality in the Ukraine conflict. The following day, Ukraine used this new authorization to actually strike Russia. This is a major escalation in the war. And the reason why Putin knows that these missiles cannot be controlled by Ukrainian soldiers. They need satellite data to direct them to the targets. And a whole host of actions have to go into preparation of the missiles and targeting before they are launched. NATO is pretending that because the person who pushes the button, the launch button, is Ukrainian, this is a Ukrainian operation. Putin knows better. All the Russians know better. He updated his nuclear doctrine back in September to include these kinds of missiles. Every red line that has ever been set by the Russians has been crossed. They feel comfortable that they have justification to use nuclear weapons if they decide to launch. In retaliation for the Ukraine's attacks, overnight from Wednesday to Thursday, Russia launched a ballistic missile. Video footage clearly shows several projectiles impacting sites in Ukraine. It is also worthy to note that there were no large explosions associated with these impacts. They were relatively minor explosions. This seems to be a warning to the West about the escalation and a demonstration of Russia's ability to hit its targets. US DoD and Putin himself confirmed that the use of a new hypersonic intermediate range ballistic missile striking what Russia called Ukrainian military targets. Uh, uh, that is what occurred uh, um, overnight from Wednesday into Thursday. The missile, and please forgive my pronunciation if I got this wrong, but the the Oreshnik or the Hazel Tree missile was tracked by the Ukrainians to have reached 8,000 miles per hour. This new weapon could hit targets in Europe within minutes, not half an hour as previous missiles would have taken. I want to note, I can only imagine what people were thinking as they were reading the news as war was breaking out in Europe just prior to World War II, or maybe even prior to World War One. Political moves were being made, militaries were being bolstered, operations commenced, all while the United States ignored these actions until it was too late to find a peaceful solution. We are doing the same thing again today. We are sleepwalking into another world war, and we are letting our political leaders, who have nothing to lose and everything to gain, to lead us there. At this point, we don't even know where our current president or vice president are or what they're doing. They've disappeared from the public view. In fact, in the United States, we're not even sure who's running the country. We know who's not running the country. Over in Asia, markets, Nikkei was down this week 0.27% to 38,283.85. The SSE index was down 2.32% to 3267.19. The Hang Seng index was down 1.87% to 1929.97. BSE Sensex was down 1.64% to 77,117.11. And the Nifty 50 was down this week 1.86% to 23,907.25. And in his recent visit to South America, Xi Jinping signed bilateral agreements with Brazil. During a meeting of defense ministers of the ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the Chinese minister refused to meet with U.S. Defense Minister Lloyd Austin over a proposed sale of weapons to Taiwan. In an interesting move, the new president of Mexico threatened Chinese products, She said she does not want Mexico to become a backdoor to the United States. I get the sense that there's some political dealings behind the scenes that we're not uh, privy to that are going on. And the new Mexican president is wary of the incoming U.S. president. She's concerned about what kind of duties and tariffs he might place on Mexican goods. In India, security forces killed 10 Maoist rebels in Sukma in southern uh, Chhattisgarh. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Please forgive me if I did not. In a very interesting, fascinating, and disappointing move, at least from my perspective, trying to maintain a more peaceful world. The Philippine Vice President, uh, Sarah Duterte, issued a threat to the Philippines President Fernando Marcos Jr., stating that she had hired an assassin to kill him and his family if she herself were killed. The two have obviously had a falling out, and apparently over the handling of the Chinese aggressive actions over the disputed South China Sea. In the Middle East, Israel continues to bomb targets in Beirut, which saw 15 people killed and dozens wounded. The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Israeli uh, leader Benjamin Netanyahu, along with his former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, and the Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif. In Africa, in the capital of South Sudan, Juba, heavy gunfire erupted as security forces moved in to arrest former head of intelligence service. This is a power struggle that's been going on with a new nation, a recently formed nation. And I expect that there's going to continue to be shifts of power back and forth for quite some time. In Congo, landslides killed 9 people, mostly children. The American markets. Dow Jones was down 2.18% to 44,296.51. The S&P was down 1.7% to 5969.34. And the Nasdaq uh, was down 1.64% to 19,003.65. Now, in the Caribbean, after a Haitian gang tried to take over more territory, police aided by residents killed over 2 dozen gang members. The violence in Haiti has been very dangerous and very difficult. A gun battle erupted across the U.S. Mexican border in the town of, and I hope I've pronounced this one also, uh, Tamaulipas. 3 police officers were killed and 4 cartel members were killed. This is the town, Tamaulipas, is across the border from Texas. Up further north, Montreal, Canada, saw some. They're listed as anti-NATO but there are a little more anti-Israel riots occurred in the city. Windows are smashed. Some graffiti was uh, 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 was made, and several arrests were made of those protesters. The protesters seem to be more of a anti-West, anti-capitalist group, and they also had a decidedly anti-Israel tone. In the United States, Dr. Marty McCarty is going to be appointed as the FDA chief. He's being submitted as the FDA chief for the incoming uh, uh, presidential cabinet. Uh, this is the same. This is the same doctor that is internationally recognized as an expert and warned us about how do I say this? Recent treatments of viruses that he warned us that they were not only ineffective, but a threat to our health. He told us that natural immunity would handle the virus just fine, and uh, for his efforts to tell us the truth, the FBI censored his information uh, as requested by the FDA. This continues the incoming president's trend of selecting people to shake up the agencies that they're choosing. They've been selected to lead. Many of them have been victims of the very agencies that they're going to take over. Uh, in addition, the incoming administration has chosen Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary. He has kind of cross political ties, donating both to the Democrats and working with the Republicans in the past. And he advocates for reducing expenditures and maintaining the current tax cuts. Now, along that theme of shaking up agencies, a fight is brewing domestically over immigration enforcement. Tom Homan, the incoming administration's pick for immigration enforcement, has stated he will immediately begin rounding up illegal immigrants who have ties to terrorism or they have committed additional serious crimes in the United States. In response, Democrat leaders and the media are pushing back against these deportations. The mayor of Denver has stated that he will use the police force and volunteers from around the city to defend the illegal immigrant deportations. Let me clarify that a little bit. The illegal immigrant criminal deportations. Many in the media are ignoring the focus on the criminal activities and pretend that they're going to be protecting women and children. Some of these activities include organized gangs from South America who are roaming the country and robbing high-end homes. NFL stars Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce were recent victims in Kansas City. The shocking point here is that these gangs feel empowered enough to threaten well-known celebrities as they travel throughout the United States. And another story of an illegal immigrant, Jose Ibarro was convicted of murdering nursing student Laken Riley. He avoided the death penalty because the prosecutors were afraid of the optics of prosecuting an illegal immigrant. The Disappointingly, Department of Homeland Security knew he and his brother were Trende Aragua. They were allowed not only to enter the country, but they were given free tickets to fly in the United States. Jose Ibarro was facing charges in New York, but was still given an airline ticket at taxpayer expense to travel to Georgia, where he ultimately committed murder. This is a display of the Department of Security's absolute contempt for U.S. citizens. Not only do U.S. citizens have to show identifications and pay for their own flights, but they show opposition to if they show opposition to the ruling class, they get persecuted. Army Lieutenant Colonel and former Democrat darling and candidate to become the nominee for President of the United States, Tulsi Gabbard, was placed on the TSA watch list that's called Quiet Skies. This made sure that she had extra scrutiny when she flew, anytime that she flew. Uh, and she made this list simply for challenging U.S. policies that would lead to war. If U.S. citizens plan on keeping their freedoms and their rights, this attitude has to change. The bureaucrats' attitudes have to change. And actually, individuals' attitudes have to change. Why are we putting up with this? Those who are promoting these kind of policies, they've got to be removed from positions of power, and many of them probably need to be prosecuted as well. But as long as we sit around and do nothing, we will continue to get it. We will continue to get what we deserve. Mainstream media expressed its contempt for U.S. citizens again as MSNBC presented an opinion piece questioning the validity of the prosecution of Jose Ibarra. Even after the coroner testified, the DNA evidence on Jose Ibarra and Laken Riley proved his guilt. After the recent election, left leaning news agencies saw their viewership drop precipitously, and their parent companies are preparing to reduce their size or sell them outright. Turns out that even if people support their views, they still don't like being lied to day in and day out. CNN is making cuts to its staff, and rumors are that it may be up for sale. Comcast is preparing to sell non-performing MSNBC. In a quote, Comcast announced Wednesday that MSNBC, home to anchors like Joy Reid and Lawrence O'Donnell, will join CNBC, Oxygen, Sci-Fi, and the Golf Channel as part of a new company called Spin Company. What an appropriate name for a company that controls MSNBC and CNBC. Ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up this week's uh, uh, news from around the world, significant events that I have seen. I hope that everything is going well for you, and I hope that you guys are preparing for the challenges and changes that are happening and unfolding in our world. Please like, share, and subscribe. Make some comments on this also. It really helps me. And if you feel up to it, feel free to order a book. I would greatly appreciate it. Uh, Hope you're doing well. Much love to everybody, and please get yourself ready mentally, physically, emotionally, and look forward to talking with you again next week.